The letter had yellowed from sunlight and dust, but I kept it folded in my coat pocket, like it was scripture. Margaret Penrose. Brown hair. Quiet manners. She was supposed to step off that stagecoach with trembling hands and hopeful eyes, looking for a fresh start. I'd built a whole future around that picture in my mind. A clean house, a hot supper, silence broken by shared glances, and maybe, someday, laughter. So when the woman finally arrived, leather boots kicking up dust, a revolver strapped to her hip, and a sharpness in her green eyes that could cut stone, I knew something was wrong. She wore a pale blue dress, wrinkled and travel-worn, but it clung to a body that moved like it had outrun death itself. Her hat was tilted low, casting her features in shadow, but not enough to hide the streak of dried blood trailing down her boot. "Mr. Langston?" she asked, voice like cracked velvet. I nodded, too stunned to speak. She smiled faintly. "I'm Margaret. Sorry for the delay. I should have turned around right then. Should have told her to get back on the coach and send the real Margaret through next time. But something about her, something in the way she looked at my land, like she'd seen it before, froze me in place." "Long ride?" I finally asked. "Long enough." I loaded her bag onto the buckboard. It was heavier than it looked, metal clinking inside. Tools, maybe. Or ammunition. The ride back to the ranch was quiet. She didn't ask about the cattle. Didn't ask about the house. Just stared out at the dry hills like they were hiding ghosts. When I pulled up near the barn, she stepped down without waiting for help and headed straight toward the house, boots leaving bloody half-moons in the dirt. "You're hurt," I said. She didn't answer. Just turned back long enough to say, "Do you keep a rifle by the door?" I felt the hair on my neck rise, always. "Good, you might want it." That's when I saw the riders. 3 of them far off just crested the southern ridge. They weren't waving, weren't calling out. Just watching. I stepped beside her, resting my hand near my holster. "You expecting company?" Her face went still. Not the friendly kind. I glanced at her again, at the gun on her hip, at the slight bulge in her coat pocket that might have been more than nerves. My stomach churned, but I didn't move away. "Start talking," I said, "because you sure as hell ain't the woman I wrote letters to for 6 months." She took off her hat then, revealing high cheekbones, wind-burnt skin, and eyes that looked like they'd seen the inside of a coffin and clawed their way out. "I never was Margaret," she said, "but I knew her." I didn't ask the next question, because I already knew the answer would hurt. I didn't invite her in, not really. But when someone stands on your land, dragging danger behind them like a shadow, you don't leave them on the porch. You either throw them out or keep them close enough to watch. She stepped into my home, like she'd been there before, glanced once at the rifle by the door. Her hand twitched toward it, then stopped. "My name's Dixie Hargrove," she said finally, as I bolted the door behind us. "I didn't come to hurt you." Funny. I muttered. Folks who don't come to hurt me usually leave the blood outside. She didn't flinch, just pulled a crumpled envelope from her coat. I recognized the paper. It was mine, my handwriting. The letter I'd sent to Margaret 6 weeks back. She kept them all, Dixie said quietly. "Read them like scripture." My chest tightened. "You said you knew her?" She nodded. Sat down slow, as if her legs were barely holding her. "I was with her when they found us." "They?" She didn't answer right away, just took a deep breath, then met my eyes. "She's dead, Wade. They killed her 2 days ago, outside Independence." The air left my lungs like I'd been kicked. I stared at her, at the woman sitting in Margaret's place, wearing her lie like a borrowed dress. "Why the hell are you here?" I whispered, to finish what she started. That's when the hoofbeats came, heavy, close. I grabbed the rifle, moved to the window, and peered out. The riders were nearer now, 3 men, all armed, all looking straight at my front door. One had a red bandana tied around his arm. I recognized that mark. Crenshaw's men. "Don't open the door," Dixie said behind me, standing now, hand on her pistol. "You know them?" I asked Dot. She nodded. Crenshaw's got his fingers in everything from Missouri to Colorado. Land, cattle, guns. But lately, he's been stirring up something bigger. Margaret, what was she caught up in? Dixie's eyes burned. The wrong thing. She was a school teacher, Wade. But she got nosy, asked questions about disappearing cattle and framed tribes. Found out about Crenshaw's operation. I told her to run. She wouldn't. My voice cracked. Why you? She saved me once. Paid my way out of a place no woman gets out of clean. When they came for her, she shoved those documents into my hands and said, "One, name yours." I stared at her, trying to find something solid in the storm. But I kept seeing Margaret's smile in that one worn photograph, the one where she looked like peace. "You took her name," I said. "I took her mission," she replied. "She thought you were strong, careful, could help get the truth out." "Why didn't you go to the law?" "I did. Half of 'em were paid off. The other half would have hung me just for surviving." I turned back toward the window. The riders hadn't moved. Just watched that Dixie step beside me, slow and certain. "They'll come at sundown," she said. "They always wait until it's dark. They want to scare you first." I looked at her then, not as an intruder or a liar, but as someone carrying the weight of a dead woman's last breath. I hated the lies. Hated that she'd stolen Margaret's place. But there was something in her face that didn't want saving. Just a place to stand and fight. "All right," I said, lifting the rifle. "You lied to me, and you brought hell to my doorstep." She didn't deny it, but I don't plan on dying in my own house. "You shoot straight?" Her lip twitched. "Almost." I smile, like the devil's watching. "Then let's see how many devils bleed before we fall." By morning, the men were gone from the ridge, but their tracks circled like wolves. Dixie stood at the fence line, her eyes following the horizon, like she expected the sun to bring more than light. "You didn't sleep," I said. "Didn't come here to sleep," she replied. I watched her shoulders stiff, coiled like she was waiting on a verdict she already knew was bad. She held a folded oilskin in her hands. Looked like nothing special, but when she opened it, I saw pages full of names, numbers, shipping brands. Some of it was in Margaret's handwriting. "What am I looking at?" I asked. "Proof," she said. "Crenshaw's been moving cattle across state lines, slaughtering them on fake tribal land, then blaming the thefts on native raids." My stomach turned. She flipped to another page. "He's not just stealing. He's provoking war. Panic drives prices up. Land gets seized. He profits while innocent people bleed." "And Margaret had this?" I asked. She dug too deep. "She sent some of it to a marshal in Kansas City. Never heard back. Why come here?" She looked me dead in the eye. "Because you've got a clean name and enough land to hide on." I didn't know what shook me more, that she had documents that could set the territory on fire, or that she thought I was still the kind of man who could help. "They'll kill you for this," I said. "They're already trying," she replied. Studied the pages again. One of the names leapt out. Jonas Crenshaw. Another Elijah Voss. I knew Voss. He wasn't just a rancher. He was head of the cattlemen's board. Sat in church beside judges. Hosted charity drives. A real God-fearing devil, if there ever was one. "You want to expose this?" "I want to end it." "And you think I'm the lever to flip the damn table?" She nodded. "Or the last man I'll trust before I run again." The front gate creaked. A rider approached alone, but with authority. Dixie moved behind the barn door with her revolver out. I stepped forward, rifle in hand, but didn't raise it. The man dismounted with a smirk. Slim build, fine clothes, clean boots. "I'm looking for a woman," he said. "Goes by Margaret. Or Dixie, or whatever she's calling herself today." "What's your name?" I asked. He smiled like we were already old friends. "Name's Crenshaw." He stepped closer. "That woman's dangerous. She's been stealing, lying, seducing men with sob stories about dead teachers and dirty cattle. I'm here to bring her in peaceful like." I didn't blink. "You come alone?" He grinned. "Didn't figure I'd need more." I felt Dixie's presence behind me, steady and cold. "I'm not handing her over," I said. Crenshaw tilted his head. "You sure?" "I'm sure." His smile dropped. "Then I hope you like fires, 'cause every fence post you own is about to catch." He mounted up, turned, and rode out without another word. Dixie exhaled. "He's testing you." "No," I said, watching the dust trail disappear. "He's warning me." "Which means you—" rattled the right cage. That night I oiled every weapon I owned. Dixie paced like a trapped wolf. Neither of us said much, but I felt something shift some line between strangers and allies. Maybe even something deeper. I poured her a cup of coffee near midnight. She accepted without looking. "Why'd you do it?" I asked. "Why not run the other way?" She stared into the dark. "Because Margaret didn't run, and I'm tired of running." The wind howled outside, but inside 2 people was 2. Many scars and not enough faith planned to burn a wicked empire to the ground. The sky broke open just past dawn. Gunfire cracked through the valley like thunder from hell, and the quiet morning turned into chaos. Crenshaw's men didn't wait for nightfall, after all. They came at first light 4 riders from the west, 3 from the creek, and 1 bold fool who tried the front gate. I barely had time to shout before Dixie was already at the window, Winchester cocked and aimed. Her first shot dropped a rider clean off his saddle. The second sent the others scattering like coyotes under torchlight. "They're not here to talk," she said, calm as cold water. "No," I muttered, loading shells with shaking fingers. "They came to clean up loose ends." We fell into rhythm me on the porch, Dixie covering the barn. Bullets punched through wood and whistled past our ears, kicking up splinters and dust. My cattle screamed and scattered, hooves thundering like a second storm. Then I saw Crenshaw himself just behind the main gate. He raised his pistol, but didn't fire, just watched. Like a man marking targets, weighed. Dixie shouted. I turned in time to see a figure dart from the side of the barn, rifle raised. Too close, she fired. The man dropped, but not before getting his shot off. Dixie fell hard that time stopped. I ran to her, heart pounding in my ears. Blood seeped through her shirt, just below the ribs. "I'm fine," she gasped, clutching the wound. "No, you ain't," I said, pressing my hand over hers. "Stay down, don't move." Gunfire raged behind me, but I heard a voice shout deep, commanding. Then another. Horses neighed in panic. A whistle blew. Then silence. Boots pounded the earth, dozens of them. Uniforms, stars, shouts of drop. "Your weapons," echoed across the fields. The marshals had come. It was over in minutes. Crenshaw was gone, slipped away in the confusion. But 5 of his men were dead, and 3 were cuffed, spitting blood and curses in the dirt. Marshal Hayes approached, his face grim. "Langston?" "Yeah," I said, still on my knees beside Dixie. He looked at her, then at me. "She yours?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, she's mine." Dixie coughed a laugh. "Smooth, cowboy." Hayes knelt beside her, his voice dropping. "We've been tracking her for weeks. She's been feeding intel through back channels. Damned good work." I blinked. "Wait, you knew?" "She's federal," he said, unofficially. "Been running a sting on Crenshaw's cattle ring. We didn't expect it to hit this hard." "She didn't expect Margaret to die," I snapped. "She didn't expect to bleed on my porch." Hayes looked at me real serious. "Then maybe she finally found someone worth bleeding for." I stayed with her while the medics patched her up. She never let go of my sleeve even when the morphine hit. Her fingers curled tight, like I was the only steady thing in the storm. Later, when the house was quiet again and the blood was scrubbed from the porch, I sat beside her bed. She looked small under the blanket, but her eyes were clear. "You never answered me," I said. "Why me?" She didn't smile, just whispered, "Because Margaret trusted you. And now so do I." I took her hand. For the first time in years, I felt like something true had taken root in this land, something worth guarding, worth bleeding for. Dixie healed slow. The bullet hadn't gone too deep, but the pain stayed sharp both in her ribs and in her heart. She hated being still, hated needing help, but she let me change the bandages even when it hurt. Let me bring her coffee. Let me sit beside her in the quiet. "Feels like a weakness," she said once. "Feels like trust." I answered Dot. It took her a long time to stop flinching every time the wind slammed a shutter. The marshals came and went, hauling prisoners toward Dodge, but they didn't get Crenshaw, nor Elijah Voss. Both had vanished like rattlers in high grass. One morning, a letter arrived, no stamp, no return address. Just a single name scratched into the outside. Langston. I opened it in front of her. Inside was a folded sheet of paper and a bullet taped to the corner. The message was short. "Trader, or every rancher between here and the Salt River dies slow. Devil's Rock, 4 days. Come alone." I looked up. Dixie was already pale. "They want you to deliver me," she said quietly. "No," I growled. "They want leverage, and they think I scare easy." She stood, slower than she used to, but steady. "If I run, they'll still kill others. I know. They'll burn barns, slaughter livestock, hang boys to fence posts as warnings. No." She grabbed my wrist. "Then we give them what they want." "The hell we do." Her eyes flashed. "We set a trap." I didn't answer right away. I just stared at her, the way the wind lifted the edge of her shirt, the way her eyes dared the world to test her again. She wasn't healed, not fully, but she was ready to fight. "You're serious." "Dead serious." I paced, thought, measured the risk. Marshals could be nearby still. I could wire Hayes, but it would take time, and I didn't trust the telegraph office anymore. Not with how deep Crenshaw's claws went. "You'd be the bait," I said finally. "I already am. And if they kill you before I can stop it, then make damn sure they don't." I nodded slowly. "We do this on my terms, my land, my traps. Devil's Rock is a death funnel unless we know the trails." "I know them," she said. "Margaret and I camped there once. I remember the back ridges. We spent the next 2 days preparing. I mapped out every angle, planted weapons in hidden hollows, dug blind spots into the bluff. Dixie carved fake documents to make the handoff look real. And on the 3rd night, I wired Hayes using a signal from my old army, days-coded, fast, and dangerous. I didn't know if he'd come, but I knew one thing. I wasn't letting the devil win without making him bleed first. On the night before we rode out, Dixie stood in the doorway of the bunkhouse, hair down, boots unlaced, moonlight turning her, scar into silver. If I don't make it, I crossed the space and kissed her hard. Honest. No promises. "Just fire. You'll make it," I whispered. "Because I ain't doing this alone." Devil's Rock wasn't a place folks visited twice. A twisted outcrop of black stone and dry gulches. It was named for a legend no one really believed, but everyone respected. Folks said it echoed different at night. That blood spilled there. Never dried. I didn't know about devils, but I knew it was the perfect place for men to disappear. We rode in before dawn. Just the 2 of us, like the note demanded. Dixie wore a dark coat to hide the bandages. Her steps were steady, but I could see the ache in every breath. I had my rifle wrapped in a blanket behind the saddle, revolver at my hip, and 2 surprises tucked under the saddlebag. As we dismounted near the flat basin at the base of the rock, Dixie whispered, "They'll have the high ground." "I know," I said, scanning the cliffs, "and we're walking into a noose." "I know that too." She looked at me. "Still time to run." "Not without you." We waited 10 minutes before the first man showed, then 2 more. Crenshaw stepped out last, calm as you please, like he was here to collect a parcel, not stage a murder. "Well now," he drawled, "ain't this romantic? Thought maybe you'd send a proxy." "She's here," I said. "That's what you wanted." He smiled. "You got the documents?" I tossed a leather satchel forward. It hit the dirt with a thud. He didn't move. "Open it." IDIDN, single quotes T. Instead. "You killed Margaret Penrose. You tried to kill Dixie, and now you're threatening ranchers who don't even know your name." Crenshaw's face darkened. "You don't get to preach, Langston. You get to walk away. Or not." Then a voice echoed down from the ridge, sharp and official. "Drop your weapons, U.S. Marshals. You're surrounded." Crenshaw's eyes went wide. Dixie already had her, gun drawn. I dropped to one knee, rifle up. All hell broke loose. Parker fired first from behind a boulder, missed me by inches. Dixie dropped and rolled, hitting Voss in the shoulder before he could take cover. Bullets ricocheted off the rocks, screams. Bouncing off the walls, I hit the dirt and returned fire. One man fell near the creek bed. Another bolted, only to be tackled by a marshal sliding down the slope. Crenshaw ran. Coward, just like I'd figured, but Dixie saw him first. She chased him, one hand pressed to her side, breathing ragged. I scrambled after her, shouting her name, heart pounding. Crenshaw reached his horse almost, but Dixie got there first. He raised his pistol, but she didn't flinch. One shot rang out. He collapsed. I grabbed her as she staggered, catching her before she hit the ground. "You all right?" I asked, breathless. She gave me a tired smile. "Better than him?" Marshall spread across the basin, cuffing the wounded, dragging the dead. It was over. Hayes found us last. He looked between Dixie and me and gave a rare nod. "You did it." He said. "No," I corrected. "She did." Hayes pulled a sealed envelope from his coat. "They're offering her a full badge. Federal Marshal, if she wants it." Dixie looked at the envelope, then at me. And for the first time since this all began, I saw something softer in her eyes, uncertainty, and maybe hope. She didn't take the envelope. Not yet. We rode home in silence. Side by side. No shadows chasing us for once. Spring came late that year. Like everything else in my life, unpredictable, cautious, beautiful. Once it finally arrived. Dixie stood by the corral fence, watching the colts stumble in the new grass, her bandages long gone. The wind caught her hair, and for a second she looked more like a woman dreaming than one who'd stared down death 3 times in a week. She hadn't answered the marshal's offer. Not yet. The envelope still sat untouched on the kitchen table, its seal unbroken. "You ever think about leaving?" I asked, handing her a tin cup of coffee. "Every day," she said. "But less now?" I nodded. "What would you do if I took it?" she asked quietly. "Rode off to chase men and ghosts across the territory?" "I'd miss you," I said, "but I'd understand." She turned toward me. "And if I stayed," I swallowed, "then I'd build you a house by the creek, put in windows that catch morning light, and plant tomatoes you'd never remember to water." She laughed, and God help me, it was the first sound all season that made the world feel whole again. That night we sat on the porch. No guns, no threats. Just 2 people and the stretch of quiet between them. Dixie opened the envelope, read the letter, then folded it in half and set it in the fire. I didn't speak. Just watched the flames eat the ink and the paper curl into ash. "I don't want to be a badge anymore," she said. "I don't want to be hunted or hidden or used like a weapon with legs." I looked at her. "What do you want?" She took a long breath. "Tomatoes that die in the dirt, because I forgot again. A roof that leaks when it rains. A man who brings me coffee and knows when I need silence more than words. A name that isn't borrowed, and a home that's mine." She turned to me then, eyes steady. "Is that something we could build here?" I didn't answer with words, just pulled her hand into mine, let her feel the calluses and the steadiness. "Yes," I said. We didn't kiss. Not then. It wasn't a moment for heat or fire. It was a moment for soil, for planting something slow and sacred. A thing that wouldn't bloom overnight, but would outlast any storm if we fed it right. We sat there until the moon was high, and the coyotes howled in the distance. Dixie leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, "I'm tired of being a survivor." I nodded. "Then let's start living." 6 months later, the land looked different. Not because the grass grew greener or the fences stood straighter, but because of the woman beside me, planting roots with every step she took. Dixie Hargrove, once a ghost in someone else's name, was now my wife. We married under the cottonwoods behind the barn. No preacher, no crowd. Just us, and a vow spoken low and certain. I slid a band on her finger, plain silver, forged by the same blacksmith who'd helped my father brand our first. CALF. She kissed me with both eyes open, as if refusing to blink at anything life still had to throw our way. We didn't talk about the past much. Not out loud, but the porch still creaked where she'd been shot, and the rifle by the door stayed loaded, we didn't pretend. That's what made it real. She started a small corner of the ranch just for women ones looking for shelter, for work, for second chances. They came in ones and twos, most carrying more silence than belongings. Dixie taught them how to ride, how to aim, how to grow things that didn't die easy. She didn't offer comfort, she offered tools, freedom, and somehow the ranch grew. The land gave more than it took. Cattle fattened. Rain came when it was needed. The barn roof didn't leak anymore. One evening I found her planting tomatoes again. She knelt in the dirt, smudged with earth and sweat. She looked up at me, hair stuck to her cheek, and said, "I'll probably forget to water these." I sat beside her, fingers brushing the soil. "That's all right. I'll remember." She smiled, not like a woman in love, but like a woman who chose love. Every damn day, there was no last battle. No final twist, just quiet mornings, honest labor. Peace that had to be earned over and over. We didn't build a life out of rescue. We built it out of choice. And every night she chose to stay, I felt like the luckiest man in the territory.